and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. It's been quite a week. There's a lot of news that I want to cover with you guys. Of course, I might not be able to get to everything, but I want to get to most of it. We are facing technically a government shutdown, possibly. Let's pray that we don't go through anything that we went through last year. And it wasn't that long ago. It was just a few months ago with, October to November, right before the holidays. It was quite a scene. And, a lot of people say that nothing really got done, right? Everything was held up. Nothing really got done. Now, the ACA, they were able to come into negotiations on it, but now there's a new linchpin. There is DHS. They were like, we're going to defund DHS. I'm like, y'all are interesting. And we'll look at that as well. But right now, let's get into our Kids Corner.
Ever wonder how powerful a smile can be? Meet Zio, a rich boy with everything except real happiness. But one day, a simple smile would change everything. One morning, Zio saw a girl selling balloons. She had no shoes, but her smile lit up the street. Zio couldn't stop looking at her joy. That night, Zio asked his nanny, why did the girl smile like that when she had nothing? His heart felt heavy but warm. The next day, Zio went back to the same street. This time, he stepped out and walked slowly toward the smiling balloon girl. Zio started visiting the girl often. He shared toys, snacks, and his time. Her smile became his favorite part of the day, and he started smiling too. Zio realized happiness isn't something you buy, it's something you share. And sometimes a smile is the most powerful gift you can give. A simple smile can light up someone's world. You don't need to be rich to be kind. Share joy, and it will always find its way back to you.
Yes, and kindness does start with a smile. Can you notice how, you might be walking down the street and somebody's kind of down and you smile at them and they kind of perk up like, wow, okay. Yes, smiles go a long way. So let's continue to do that. And let's get into our prayer to honor God with our body. God, please guard our mind and thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please help me to listen for your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over my mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. And God, please protect my reproductive organs. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet as I walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And that is definitely a prayer on this program that we try to say daily. And today is Prayer with Friday. So today we're going to pray for cover and Thanksgiving going into the weekend, and that'll be towards the end of our program. Sometimes I do have guests on. I don't have any guests today, but I will allow an open mic. So if there's anybody that would like to come up and, maybe you might have a prayer request, you can put that in the comment section and we can pray for that. Or you may want to come up and say a prayer with our audience. And you can always email me at unfilteredvisionnews@gmail.com, or you can direct message me on X. And with that, we're going to get into our first line of news. There's been a lot going on, especially here in Atlanta, where I live. And wow. So the 2020 election is now back at the topic of conversation. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Because, and here's the thing. Even Democrats were leery of voting machines. They were also called election interference when I want to say when President Gore ran against George W. Bush. They were all out, like totally denying the election. But when Donald Trump got upset about it, oh my goodness, they wanted to throw people in jail over talking about the 2020 election. We will knock you off of social media if you tell such lies. It's like, wait a minute. You guys were able to expound upon your opinions and their opinions, right? No one's threatening anybody. No one's trying to take anybody's life. We're just talking about elections. So I found that one very fascinating. So let's get into our first video talking about this. Now, I've got some footage, the FBI footage. But what I wanted to start out with is this ABC News article that they have.
Breaking news, Fulton County officials are holding a press conference after the FBI executed a search warrant at the county's election hub yesterday. Let's listen.
All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Let me start with this statement. I want to be crystal clear. Fulton County has been targeted for years because I stood up to Donald Trump's big lie and refused to bend to pressure. In 2020, I told him and others, including then Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, then Congressman Matt Gaetz, and the president himself, to stay the hell out of Fulton County. I meant it then, and I mean it today. Every audit, every recount, every court ruling has confirmed what we, the people of Fulton County, already knew. Our elections were fair and accurate, and every legal vote was counted. These ongoing efforts are about intimidation and distraction, not facts. I will always stand with our voters, our election workers, and most importantly, the truth. As you all know by now, yesterday, shortly after noon, until around 9 o'clock last night, the FBI made a surprise execution of a criminal search warrant at the Fulton County Elections Hub. Now, today, I want to speak.
Now, if they were able to get a warrant, that means they had enough evidence to get it issued. They can't just go in and do what they want. I'm just saying, the FBI can't do that. They cannot do that. So the question then becomes, what was the information that they were able to give to a judge to actually, go forward and obtain a warrant? You have to obtain a warrant. You can't just go. You got to obtain it. So again, there was enough information to obtain a warrant. So he's leaving that part out. I'm just saying.
Directly to Fulton County voters as your chairman. Some people have asked, and are still asking, why didn't you turn over the records? Why didn't you fight? Number one, let me be, again, crystal clear. There is a fight. Fulton County is now, has been, and always will be committed to upholding the law, no matter what anyone else does. Our attorneys carefully reviewed the search warrant and advised me and others that it was in the best interest of Fulton County to comply, which we did.
They had no choice but to comply. It was a warrant issued. I'm just saying. It wasn't like the FBI showed up and said, hey, give me your stuff. No, they had a warrant, a judicial warrant, meaning that a judge said, okay, you have enough probable cause to justify this warrant. They had no choice but to comply. It's very interesting how this is being set up.
Secondly, one of the strangest things about this case is these records were the subject of active litigation and, quite frankly, were likely to be unsealed and turned over in a matter of weeks. All they had to do was ask the judge to do so, but albeit in a much more orderly manner. We in Fulton County have nothing to hide. And finally, and most importantly, this is by no means over. This is by no means over. And we're grateful for everyone around the country who is in this fight with us. And they're with us from every corner of this great nation. Any honest review of these files will show what every previous review has shown. Fulton County elections are fair and lawful, and the outcome of the 2020 election will not change, period. Let me talk about voter protections. Now, we do not know where our election records have been taken or what will happen to them now that they are out of our control. While they were here, they were safe and they secure. Once they left Fulton,
there was always a chain of custody. So for him to say this is hyperbole, and it's very distracting and it's very destructive to people thinking, oh my gosh, I just took him. No, they can actually get information on where they are, but they may not be able to be allowed to go to said location because those files are under investigation. So again, there's a chain of custody, and they are subject to letting them know because they have to let the judge know, right? The judge, there's always full disclosure. There is a chain of custody. So what he is saying, in my opinion, is hyperbole.
County, our election center, I don't know where they are. I don't know who has them. I don't know what they're doing with them. We can no longer be held responsible for those ballots and other data that was seized yesterday. But what I'm hoping that we will stand together to ensure that no data is ever weaponized. Poll worker protection. After the 2020 elections, Fulton County poll workers endured brutal and targeted harassment. And now it is imperative that data from the 2020 election not be used to further harass our poll workers who have already endured so much. Fast forward, this year, 2026 elections. This week's activities show that Fulton County is still much a target, and I'm told that I am personally a target. I'm a big boy. Now, while we've grown accustomed to name-calling and rhetoric, we will not give 1 inch to those who seek to take control of our elections. Now, hear what I just said. We will not give 1 inch to those who seek to take control of elections in Fulton County. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. We're going to fight this in court with every resource that we have. And again, I'm very grateful to the support that is coming to us from around the country. Time and time again, the law has been on our side. And the greatest legal minds in the country agree it will be once again. I want to thank the local and national legal communities for their overwhelming support to us in this moment in the history of Fulton County, Georgia. Thank you.
I just want to say that Fulton County's Department of Registration and Elections has continued and will continue to maintain efficient, transparent, and accurate elections and election results. Our duty is to the voters and to the county voters, the electorate that goes out. We do not care what their political position is. We are there to make sure that they have an efficient process, that the process is fair, that the results are accurately and transparently reported. And that's what we will continue to do. We won't take our eye off the ball. We are continuing to focus on the 2026 election and those coming up, and Fulton County will stand strong. As the chairman said, poll workers have been targeted. We sometimes have difficulty recruiting poll workers because they are concerned about being subject to abuse. And I just want to thank the department and all of the staff that worked tirelessly yesterday until 9 o'clock at night and fully complied with the FBI. Even if we were surprised, we were able to efficiently comply, to discuss, and to make sure that what they were requesting, we complied with. Do we have concerns about the process? Are we concerned about the material, about voter information, and what will happen to personal, private information of voters? Of course we are, but that was out of our hands yesterday. We, like the chairman said, we will continue to be vigilant. We have a policy in Fulton County, if you see something, say something, so that voters know when they go to the polls that if anything goes awry, that someone will be reporting it, and we ourselves make sure that we report and tell anything that happens that's major, and we did that just a couple of months ago. So Fulton County will remain strong. We won't take our eye off the ball, and we thank those who are supporting us, and we hope that you all will continue to be vigilant and to not be subject to misinformation that may come out, because as the chairman said, we don't know how the information will be used. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, so that is the press conference that they had yesterday. And I had to pull this up on my phone because, Fulton County, they were ordered by a judge to pay $10,000 per day daily, a fine starting in late August of 2025 for civil contempt of court. The penalty stems from the Board of Commissioners, refusal to appoint 2 Republican nominees to the local election board. Let me say that again. They're being charged $10,000 a day, and that's been since August of last year. Okay. Their refusal to appoint 2 Republican nominees to the local election board, defying a direct court order to seat them. Okay. They have to have so many that are Democrat, so many that are Republican. And they're just like, all Republicans are like election deniers, and so we're not going to put them on the board of commission. But they're saying, hey, Fulton County, we stand for the people. No, you don't. Stop that. You are so partisan that it is outstanding what you're doing right now. And the FBI is going to find everything. All your communications, everything. And then we're all going to find out about it too. Just saying. So let's continue down this little bit of a rabbit hole. Okay, so you saw the press conference. Now we're going to go back in time about a month. And this is in regards to the 315,000 votes from 2020 that were not certified properly. So that's also a part of this investigation. So let's get to that one.
Fulton County made a stunning admission about the 2020 election. After almost 5 years of assuring voters all procedures were followed, it turns out that may not be entirely true. Now they face some steep fines from the state elections board. Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon is live tonight at the state capitol, where this all came out earlier this month. Doug.
Yeah, good evening, Blair. And those fines could crest $1 million if the state elections board gets exactly what they're asking for. Fulton County essentially admitted that there were unsigned tabulator tapes. Those are those pieces of paper akin to receipts that come out of the voting tabulation machines that help them verify how many people voted and to make sure that it actually matches the number of votes that were cast. Those are unsigned, and that violates state law. The board also admitted that they were missing some documents tied to 2020.
But it's a violation of a rule. They should have done it.
A stunning admission earlier this month from an attorney representing Fulton County's election board.
The tapes that are an issue in this case have been produced. They just weren't signed.
The ticker tapes she's talking about, shown here, are almost like receipts spit out by voting tabulators on election night. State law says they must be signed by poll workers for verification, but some 150 tapes tracking the votes of some 315,000 people during early voting in 2020 weren't signed.
At best, this is sloppy and it's lazy. At worst, it could be egregious, and it could have affected an election.
Some other ticker tapes and documents tied to the 2020 election were also missing, the county said. The revelation made waves nationally. Even Elon Musk posted about it. Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger assured it wouldn't have altered the results of the election that was audited and verified several times over. Raffensperger posting online, quote, "A clerical error at the end of the day does not erase valid legal votes."
A clerical error could be one tabulator tape not signed or one tabulator tape missing, not 148 tabulator tapes missing.
Garland Favorito, who runs the conservative watchdog group Voter GA, said the admission is disturbing to people who've had doubts about the 2020 election for years.
It's not vindication. It's just about accuracy and in the integrity and security of future elections.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And that wasn't it for Fulton County this month. Just last Friday, a judge down the hill here ruled that they have to turn over images of ballots from 2020. It was something they had been fighting the state elections board on for well over a year. We're outside the state capitol. Doug Reardon, Atlanta News First.
So maybe that could be a reason why the FBI is there. Because there's been this continuing refusal from the Board of Elections in Fulton County. You guys, I mean, it's a lot. And good morning, Spud McKenzie. Thank you so much for joining us here. And I think you are joining us from YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. So, yeah. Okay, so like I said, I had to take you back in time just a little bit. And now we're going to go forward. Okay. We're going to check out this clip next. Sorry, I'm just going to have to get used to this little flow. It's kind of clunky to me, but you guys let me know. Let's see, this. Okay, this is going to be sharing about the FBI in Fulton County. Now, this also happened, I want to say yesterday. Yeah, happened yesterday. And then they did their press conference as well.
You know, folks, we've been following this breaking news all day long, all this afternoon, right here on 11 Alive News and streaming on 11 Alive Plus.
Right now, federal agents are searching the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center. This is a massive 260,000 square foot facility in Union County and Union City, rather, and it's just off of Campbellton Fairburn Road. Now, the view from our 11 Alive Sky Tracker shows part of the building has been blocked off with crime scene tape. The county saying that agents are looking for records related to the 2020 election.
And this video just coming into our newsroom of more FBI agents arriving to Union City just in the last 30 minutes, along with the Deputy Director, Andrew Bailey. We have live team coverage for you tonight. Our crews are out there chasing the latest information as well as reaction from local and state leaders. We're going to kick things off with Grace King. So, Grace, you just got new information within the last hour. What are you learning?
Well, county leaders shared the search warrant with me just about in the last hour. It says that special agents with the FBI believe there is evidence inside this building that will show proof of a crime committed here in Fulton County during the 2020 election. Now, if you take a look behind me, you can see kind of the staging area setup they have going on here. They've brought in a satellite surveillance truck here in the last couple of minutes. They've also brought in those SUVs with the Deputy Director of the FBI. There are also enterprise rental trucks here ready to shovel out information. Now, the search warrant shared with me, it says they're looking for all records relating to violations of certain sections of the U.S. Code, including all physical ballots from the 2020 general election, all tabulator tapes for every voting machine used in Fulton County, all ballot images produced during the original ballot count beginning on November 3rd of 2020, and all voter rolls from the 2020 general election in Fulton County. Now, that includes a review of electronic storage as well as physical evidence. Again, they have those trucks ready to take all of that evidence out. They've been here 5 hours so far. We've seen them showing up more and more, bringing in more agents, especially those from their evidence recovery team here on site. Now, again, they're looking for evidence related to that 2020 election. To give you some context, 500,000 people voted here in Fulton County during that November 2020 election. So there's a lot of evidence. This is a big warehouse. And again, they're looking for...
Now, she said 500,000 people voted. That number, keep that number in mind. 500,000 people voted and 315,000 votes were not certified. So more than half of the votes of the people weren't certified? And you're saying there's nothing to see here? Let's continue.
For a lot of that. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. Live in Union City, Grace King on 11 Alive News.
Okay, Grace, thanks a lot for the update there.
And as you can imagine, we are hearing from so many people reacting to this developing story. We are hearing tonight from the Fulton County commissioners as well as members of Georgia's election board. Here's what some of them had to say.
This is a full frontal attack on democracy. This is a cold.
No, I'm going to pause it right there. So this gentleman is part of the reason why they're being fined $10,000 a day, because he sits as the chair. Okay. Refusing to put at least 2 Republicans on the board. And there have been several Republicans sent. Several. I mean, I lost count. Okay. But they need at least, all they have to have is 2. And they will not have the majority. You just need 2 people. What is the $10,000 a day since August? This is what the people of Fulton County, you're going to have to pay that, Fulton County, $10,000 a day, fined by a judge. Is this why the FBI had to intervene? Or did the FBI intervene because you refused to give over the documents when they did ask you? And you know, the chairman before, he was just like, oh, well, they would have had them in a few days. Just stop lying. They should have had them years ago. Okay? Years ago. Oh, y'all are wild. But anyway, let's continue.
Red in America, in Fulton County. We've seen it in Minneapolis, and now we're seeing it here in Fulton County. We must do everything that we can to protect the right to vote.
It's kind of disbelief. It's been a long time in coming.
Okay, I don't know why he's equating voting to what's going on in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is on fire because people have been, in my opinion, radicalized, okay, to attack federal agents, which is never smart. Now, the de-escalation does need to happen. I'm not saying it doesn't. There needs to be a balance. Like I was saying on the show yesterday, pull out all the agents, give the governor 90 days and list of individuals that you need to apprehend. Tell the governor you got 90 days to get these people, and then we're going to pick them up. And we do not want to pick them up in the general public because we do not want anyone in the general public to be harmed. If you don't get those people in 90 days, then your politicians that are there, that are responsible for getting these people, they need to go to federal prison. Period. Something needs to be done. If you don't want the ICE agents there, fine. Then you apprehend these people. And if you refuse to apprehend these people, then you need to go to federal prison. And then we need to take it a step up to whoever's next in line and say, okay, are you ready to go to prison for these people? Are you ready to go to prison for harboring these people? Find them, retrieve them so we can deport them, period. But let's continue.
I think, and getting a lot of the answers that need to be given.
Well, news of the search reaching all the way to the state capitol, where reaction is very split from lawmakers.
Yeah, that's right. We're hearing from a lot of lawmakers today. Let's get to 11 Alive Doug Richards right now. He's in Fulton County at the courthouse. What can you tell us, Doug?
Well, we know that the reaction is cutting pretty cleanly across party lines. Republicans seem to like what they see going on here. Democrats we've talked with, not so much. We'll start by hearing from a Democrat named Syra Draper, who's a House member and who's also become something of an election specialist in the Democratic caucus.
President Trump has made so many references about losing Georgia in 2020. He has specifically mentioned Fulton County over and over again. This is a petty, small man that cannot get over the fact that he lost Georgia fair and square in 2020.
I welcome the FBI's thorough investigation into our elections and look forward to their conclusions. I think a lot of concerns linger about election integrity and security and fairness in our elections. So look forward to their result. And the only answer we can have that Georgians will trust is a transparent solution.
And that's Blake Tillery, a state senator from Vidalia. He also happens to be running for lieutenant governor, seeking the Republican nomination next spring. And that's where you might find the two sides talking about what's going on at the election office today. We are live in downtown Atlanta. Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
All right, Doug, thank you so much. And President Donald Trump, you may have heard, has long insisted that the 2020 election was stolen. Judges across the nation and even his own attorney general have said they found no evidence of widespread fraud that would have tipped the vote in favor of former President Joe Biden. Last month, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit seeking access to Fulton County's 2020 election documents. The Fulton County clerk has filed a motion to dismiss that lawsuit. We will keep following this story for you very closely, and you can stream the latest.
Yeah, so it's really going to be interesting to see how all of this fares out. But, you know, the chairman before was like, they're not going to find anything. And I'm like, if there was nothing to hide, why did it have to come to the DOJ? You know what I'm saying? Coming down with a lawsuit. Why did the FBI have to get a warrant? Again, they were granted the warrant. Warrants are granted. Okay. They can't just say, we're just going to write up a warrant and go in. No, they have to have probable cause to go in. So they had enough probable cause to get a warrant. Just because they're the FBI doesn't mean they don't have to follow procedure. They have to follow procedure. So again, there was enough information. So there's going to be a lot of people out here, oh my gosh, I can't believe. Look, procedurally, they got the warrant. That's it. And again, the election board, they're still being charged $10,000 a day because they refuse to put at least 2 Republicans on that board. That's their fault. I'm just like, Fulton County, y'all are wild. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're not being injured. No one's really messing with you. You brought this on yourself. And now you want to cry foul. Y'all are wild. Y'all, look, I live south of Fulton County. I'm just saying. Mm-mm. Now, I did want to pull up this little video. And this is about voting machines. And I was going to go over it last week or maybe a couple weeks ago when the whole thing, Venezuela went down. And they were talking about the Dominion voting machines. They were talking about how there were ties. Allegedly, it was Smartmatic. That's the one. And there were ties allegedly to Venezuela and the voting machines. And we actually do use some of those Smartmatic voting machines here in the United States. And we're saying maybe there was something that was compromised, need to look into it. So I just wanted to play this short video on voting machines and how they work. So let me find it. There it is.
Each state in the United States is in charge of administering its own elections, and in most jurisdictions, voting machines are an integral part of the electoral system, recording votes in an accurate, secure way. But how exactly do they work? Through the 20th century, there was much more variance in the types of equipment used. Mechanical lever voting machines and punch card systems were common, but these became bulky, outdated systems to manage, and after the contentious 2000 election, a law was passed to modernize voting systems around the country. Today, the majority of jurisdictions use one of two systems to administer elections: direct recording electronic voting machines, DREs, or optical scan paper ballot systems. DREs allow voters to cast their ballot directly on a machine, often using a touchscreen. The DRE then records the individual vote and stores the vote count within the computer's memory. Some, but not all, come with a paper record. This allows voters to review their vote before they cast it, and can also help with potential vote audits. Optical scan systems operate much like many multiple choice tests you take in school. Voters mark their choices on a paper ballot. Those ballots are then scanned on site at the polling location or collected and scanned at a central location. In some of the country's smaller jurisdictions, hand-counted paper ballots are still the way business is handled. But as you can imagine, this would be next to impossible to manage in more populated districts. While each state sets its own voting standards.
Okay, they do this in countries with little technology. They have one-day elections. Everything gets counted, and they use paper ballots. So that's, to me, that's just an excuse. It's like, oh, it's so overwhelming. No, it's not. Get it done. You hire people to count these ballots regardless. Have them count them. Now, in the county that I'm at, I go through something similar. I put in my vote. It spits out a piece of paper. I look at it, and then I have to scan it into another system that the number goes up. That means my piece of paper has been counted. But my problem is, how do I know my vote is not going to be altered? That's always my concern. Just because you count the piece of paper doesn't mean my vote may or may not get altered, right? Is it going to show who I actually voted for? And I know who I voted for. See, what I would like to see is, so let's just say we've got somebody running for mayor and we've got somebody running for city council, right? Just two people. So I'm voting for two people. The two people that I vote for, there should be their picture, in my opinion, at the voting tally. And I get to see, okay, so when the number goes up, I know who I voted for. But then people will be like, oh, but your vote has to be secret and it's sacred. It doesn't matter. Okay, at this point, I don't care. If I vote for the mayor and I vote for a city councilman and I don't see that number go up, that means there's something wrong with the system, in my opinion. The tally should be transparent. Show it, just like you would do anything else. Once somebody votes for somebody, it should show that number going up for whoever is in there. And you should be able to see, like a little screen, right, in your jurisdiction. and the number go up. Why would that be so wrong? You don't know who's voting for somebody or not because their vote is sacred, right? So just show the tallies. So people actually know that their vote is going there and it's counted. Because again, I'll share this short anecdote. Somebody I know, he ran for sheriff. He was running, to be the nominee. So it was I forget who he was running. He was running against the incumbent. And then they told him later on, oh yeah, all 68% that you got that would have actually made you the nominee, there was a glitch in the system. So you didn't get all 68%. That's what they can do with these machines. And that's my issue with the electronic voting.
Many of those standards are designed to address security concerns about vote tampering, accessibility issues, and to ensure everyone receives their full right to a private vote. That right remains a cornerstone of American democracy. Which voting system would you trust with your ballot?
In my opinion, none. The only one that I would trust, honestly, is like what I said. If I could actually see the results in real time, and I knew that my vote was actually counted in a proper way. Because again, like I said, I know who I voted for. I can see it on paper. But once I put it in that machine, it's just counted as a piece of paper. I don't know if my vote actually went to the people it was supposed to go to. I don't trust you guys anymore. I'm going to be moving. And one of the things I want to do is I want to work on the election board. And I want to root out all of the evil going on with elections because people don't trust it anymore. You've got some states, they're just like, nope, no voter, no ID. There's no ID required in New York or California. And there's some other states. They don't require ID. So that means anybody can vote. You could be here illegally and be able to vote because there's no ID requirement. Period. So how are they going to verify? All you have to do is just tell them, yeah, I'm a naturalized citizen. How are they going to be able to verify? You don't have an ID. And then they keep talking about free and fair elections. And another thing, why is Fulton County the only county in Georgia that I'm aware of that's under investigation for this whole voter situation? I'm just saying, 500,000 people voted and 315,000 of those votes weren't certified. Even if 100,000 weren't certified, I'd be like, that's not good. We still need to look into what. Over half of the votes weren't certified. That's just negligence at that point. That's not a clerical error. What are you guys doing? This is why the FBI is there. This is why they're there. Okay? Because it's a lot. All right. Now we're going to switch gears here and we're going to get more into what's going on. Now, I mentioned before we started everything that government shutdown is looming. It just is. And it's sad. And I'm sorry. And I'm really hoping we don't have to go through all the all the yucky parts that we went through last time. I really hope that they're able to come to a resolution. I think it's before tomorrow midnight, somewhere around in there. But I did want to look at this video. And I talked about this before, and this is the car kill switch. And I wanted you guys to listen to this perspective from this clip.
Government kill switch update. The federal government is moving closer to giving your car the authority to decide whether you're allowed to drive without a warrant, without due process, and with no guaranteed way to reverse the decision once it's made. We have discussed this kill switch issue in the past, and this update is going to make you mad, and we're going to have to speak up about it. This does not happen quietly by accident. It was passed into law under the Biden administration in 2021 under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It was buried deep in Section 24220, a provision few lawmakers publicly debated, but one that now threatens to fundamentally change the relationship between Americans and their vehicles. Section 24220 directs the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to mandate in, quote, advanced impaired driving prevention technology. In plain terms, it requires systems that monitor drivers and can prevent a vehicle from operating if impairment is suspected. No breath test is required. No police officer is involved. The judgment is made by software. Once flagged, the vehicle can refuse to start or restrict operation. And here's the critical issue. There's no federal rules defining how drivers get out of that lockout. No required appeals process, no mandated reset timeline, no human review. Drivers are placed into what critics, or what I call, kill switch jail, with no exit. So you could be stuck on the side of the road and have no way to start your vehicle. And that'd be lovely if things don't go your way while you're stuck on the side of the road. This is not targeted enforcement. It applies to every driver, every time, regardless of your driving history. And that alone should raise constitutional alarms. Now, drunk driving laws already exist, and they work. Ignition interlock devices have long been required for convicted offenders, and there are 31 approved interlock systems currently in the nation. These systems require a breath sample and are imposed only after due process. But Section 24220 ignores that proven approach and instead punishes all drivers preemptively, even for those who do not drink at all. Under the mandate, automakers can choose from a range of technologies to comply. These include driver-facing cameras, they're already doing that, tracking eye movement, they're already doing that, head position, and software analyzing steering and lane-keeping behavior. And yes, they're already doing that too. Or they could create something that doesn't exist yet called touch-based alcohol sensors, and that would be embedded in the steering wheel or the start button. Imagine if you had someone with you in the passenger seat who drank too much and you offered to drive them home. Well, it would pick that up too. And none of these systems determine guilt. They calculate probability and then deny you access. False positives are inevitable. You can have fatigue, prescription drug medications, medical conditions such as diabetes, neurological disorders, or even stress can trigger impairment alerts. So shift workers, caregivers, parents, first responders are particularly vulnerable. When the system is wrong, the consequences are immediate, and the driver has no guaranteed recourse. This is not a safety feature that activates during a crash. It's preemptive denial of mobility imposed by a government-mandated algorithm. You can tell I'm not happy about this, and you shouldn't be either. Despite mounting concerns, Congress has repeatedly refused to stop it. In January 2026, an amendment offered by Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky to block funding for NHTSA's implementation of Section 24220 was defeated. While many House Republicans and Democrats voted against it, numerous lawmakers who initially opposed the concept were persuaded or misled into supporting the funding, allowing the mandate to move forward. Representative Tim Burchett of Tennessee was also very upset about the support to keep the bill funded. Consumers are speaking out. They won't buy new cars. This could be a negative impact on the auto industry and increase the cost of used cars as people say, no, we're not going to stand for it.
Can you imagine? Like, everybody's like, nope, we're not buying nothing. If it's got all that nonsense in it, we're not buying it. This is, in my opinion, it's a level of war, because war is when they impede your ability of speech, impede your ability to protect yourself, right? Or they impede your ability of transportation, your movement. So this is war. I don't think the federal government is thinking of it in that respect, but it is. It's lawfare. It's war to actually have into our legislation that you're going to allow technology to preemptively hold us captive. That's war. So we really need to reach out to the White House, right? You can call them 202-456-1111, right? I've tried the email and it always bounces back. But yeah, 202-456-1111. Or call your local not your local, but your state representative in the House. And also, senators need to be called about this because this is dangerous. And this is slavery. Yeah, I'm going to use the S word to get people and pretty much just override their rights and their freedoms to move as they want. As she said, they already have the technology for people that have DUIs. If, let's say, they want to be able to have the ability to drive again, they have to have this breathalyzer type thing. And as long as they pass that, they can drive their cars. If they don't pass it, their car will not start. It is very easy. And a lot of them are mandated by court authority to breathe into these machines at particular times of day when they know that they will be having to use their automobile. So, as she said, there are already laws in place. Why are you trying to preemptively put this law on all of us, which affects all of our freedoms, right? It's not necessarily under civil rights, but it is our God-given rights, right, of freedom to move about freely without government intervention.
That is why defunding Section 4220 has to be done now. It's meaningful, and we have to stop this program. Now, there are supporters that argue that the technology does not allow the government agents or the police to remotely shut down your vehicle. While technology, true today, the mandate still requires continuous driver monitoring. And once that hardware becomes standard across the vehicle fleet, expanding its use to become a political decision and not a technical limitation, well, that could be a problem, and you can easily expand on that in your own head, knowing that this could be a problem in the future. Privacy and cybersecurity risks compound the problem. Systems capable of denying vehicle operation must meet extraordinarily high standards of accuracy and protection, and those standards have not been proven on a national scale. A hacking or a malfunctioning system could strand drivers in dangerous situations during extreme weather, which we're having right now, or medical emergencies, or remote travel. That sounds like a nightmare, and there's a million scenarios I'm sure you can come up with. Now, the cost of another unavoidable consequence, we can't handle that. Vehicles are already becoming unaffordable for many Americans. Adding cameras, sensors, software, and compliance infrastructure will only accelerate prices and shrink consumer choice. Drivers who want simpler, more reliable vehicles will have fewer options because mandates leave no room for opting out. Proponents compare this mandate to seatbelts and airbags, and that analogy actually fails. Seatbelts do not prevent you from driving, and airbags deploy after an accident. This system intervenes before the wrongdoing occurs, based on assumptions rather than certainty, and enforces compliance by denying access altogether. An effort to repeal Section 24220 outright, including the no-kill switches in Cars Act, remain stalled. We need it passed. Without immediate and sustainable pressure, this mandate will quietly become standard equipment in all new vehicles. And that's supposed to start this year in 2026 models. And that's not on what's on the lot right now, but that can be changed through software pretty darn quickly. And this is not about defending drunk driving. It's about stopping a government overreach that treats every driver as a suspect and hands control of your personal mobility to software. Now, if Americans want to prevent this future of Section 24220, we must defund this kill switch bill before it becomes a mandate. And that would be a problem for all future cars and all next generations. Now more than ever, this is the time to contact your elected senators and representatives and demand they defund Section 4220. Don't let them get misled by those that think this is a great idea. They want control. We want freedom. If you like this video, give it a like and subscribe for more videos like this.
And that needs to happen, right? And like I said, that's why I was giving you as a number to the White House, 202-456-1111. But definitely call your representatives in the federal House and Senate, right? Because we also have state House and senators, and this is not their vote, but this is at the federal level. And, just be like, I'm not going to send you back. if you pass this. And it's really crazy because it's like, okay, Republicans, y'all are all about freedom. Shut this down. Period. Make it unlawful to ever have any type of technology like this in any vehicle. What are you doing? What are you doing? This is horrible. Absolutely horrible. And, this lays at the feet of the Republican Party. Do your job. Do your job. Okay, so the next clip we're going to get into, this goes into the ICE funding. I want to say this is an interview that Fox had with Hakeem Jeffries, just on, I know a lot of Democrats are trying to look at defunding DHS, right? And trying to defund ICE within the Appropriations Act. But they've already gotten their money through till September 2026 through the big beautiful bill that was signed into law last July. So I'm not sure who they're trying to affect or harm, right? But it's like, stop. Stop. All of this grandstanding, you're still going to have to capitulate because they've already got the money. Like, it's weird, but let's watch. Like I said, I was like, wait a minute. If they already have the money, why are you so upset?
So the latest is that we're getting word that Senate Republicans have emerged from a closed-door meeting. And when they emerged from that meeting, they sounded optimistic about a potential deal to address the government funding fight. The deal may involve passing 5 appropriations bills out of the 6th, and then a short-term funding patch for DHS so that the government can stay open while the negotiations over DHS and the way that it does its duties, those talks could continue. So with that, let's bring in House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Leader Jeffries, thank you very much for joining us today. How does that potential deal sound to you?
Well, we want to avoid a government shutdown, but it's necessary to ensure that the Department of Homeland Security dramatically changes the way in which it has been conducting itself. Taxpayer dollars should be used to address the affordability crisis here in the United States of America, which is very real. It's not a hoax.
Okay, what are you talking about? DHS is not about affordability. What are you talking about? Like, every time I hear him talk, it's like he weaves in how to talk about something completely different and create a completely different platform. The question is pending, sir. Let's continue.
It's ongoing, by the way. Taxpayer dollars should not be used to brutalize or kill American citizens or to violently target law-abiding immigrant families. So there are a variety of reforms that need to be put into place that the American people are demanding. Your own poll has shown that everyday Americans have concluded that ICE has gone too far and that behavior needs to be reined in.
So one of the issues here is that ICE's funding is already on the books through the big, beautiful bill. I know you have another name for it, but that's already on the books through 2029. So if a shutdown happens, which is sounding more and more likely because the House isn't in session until Monday or Tuesday, I think at the earliest, so why would you risk potentially allowing FEMA and TSA and the Coast Guard to lose funding over this?
Well, thank you for bringing up the one big ugly bill, because this actually highlights the problems that my Republican colleagues have actually been focused on the wrong issues. In the one big ugly bill, they enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, literally ripping health care away from about 14 million Americans. Hospitals, nursing homes, community-based health clinics are closing as a result of what they...
Okay, let me stop him there. We all found out about the fraud, bro. We all found out, Representative Jeffries, that Medicaid, Medicare, all these services were given to illegals. And you're still trying to give this money to people that are here illegally. Stop lying to us. We already know. We already know because all of the worms came out last year when everything was shut down. We found out how much people were getting, how much needed to be funded, but we also found out how many people were on the rolls that were dead people that were here, that were given, like again, funding illegally. So when he sits back and says, oh, people are going to lose their health care and hospitals are going to stop that. Stop it. Stop it. You are lying to all of us. Do your job. It's crazy.
They have done. In that same bill, they cut nutritional assistance to hungry children, families, veterans, and seniors.
Again, lies. They cut it to illegals who shouldn't be getting it anyway.
By $186 billion, the largest cut to food assistance in the history of the country. And in that very same bill, you're right, they gave the Department of Homeland Security an additional $191 billion and gave ICE $75 billion. They're using that money to unleash mass agents on American communities.
They're using that money to clean up your mess. They're using that money because 10 million illegals were allowed to come over here illegally. They are cleaning up the mess that was created by the previous administration, period. The end. You created this mess. They're like, okay, we need money to shut this all down. And then you're going to sit there and go, oh, well, there, you know, people like him, I wouldn't mind him going to prison. I wouldn't mind it. I'd be okay with it. I'd be okay with it because not only are you lying, you're getting money from organizations to continue this lie. And you're harming the American people. That's why I want you in prison. Because of what you're doing in Congress. See, he's in the House. He is the minority leader. And you're steering people, you know, obviously to vote in the House a certain way to get a certain outcome. And you guys always brag, yeah, we hold the purse. And you are mismanaging funds all the time. All the time. Now, if you guys didn't want ICE to have all of this funding, you should have dialed it back. But you didn't. And now it's there. And you're like, oh yeah, SNAP's been lowered by 186 billion because that's the fraud that they found. That shouldn't have been going to anybody anyway.
Communities on law-abiding immigrant families, and in some instances, kill the American people.
It passed.
That's right.
So now the issue before you is, are you going to encourage the House to sign on to this deal, which looks like it's coming together, to keep the government open, to pass the 5 bills, to allow a CR for Department of Homeland Security? Are you going to encourage your members to be on board with that? Are you and Senator Schumer on the same page here today?
Well, we have to evaluate what emerges from the Senate, and we'll do that on the merits. We have said, and we're in complete lockstep with Senator Schumer, Leader Schumer, and our colleagues in the Senate, that we need to pass the 5 bipartisan bills that strongly emerged with support from Democrats and Republicans originally out of the House of Representatives.
Yeah,
and
but they
we
were
certainly
also
will be
okay with the
supportive
6th
of
bill.
getting those over the finish.
We should remind people that these 6 bills were signed as part of the hangover from the last shutdown. And they were all agreed to before what happened in Minneapolis, which was very tragic. But Minneapolis is a unique situation. You're not seeing what we're seeing in Minneapolis in other places in the country. So why hold up potentially this funding on a bill that everyone agreed to, both sides agreed to in the first round?
Well, let me address the statement that you just made, because that's inaccurate. The Homeland Security funding bill was before the House prior to the cold-blooded killing of Alex Pretty. And the overwhelming majority of House Democrats voted against it. And we were very clear why we were voting against it. Because we believe that there should be a prohibition on ICE deporting or detaining American citizens. We believe that ICE should...
Okay. This just drives me up the wall. How are you saying ICE is deporting and detaining it. No, they're not American citizens. They're specifically going in and getting people. Now, the people that they are detaining are the people that are agitators. Okay? And some of them are American citizens, but they should not be agitating federal agents trying to do their job. This guy. Like, it's like that stuff right there. I'm like, just admit that that you want to harbor illegal aliens on our soil. Just admit it. And then once you admit it, we're going to put you in federal prison. That's where I'm at. If you were down with people breaking the law, violating federal law. Now, here's my thing. House, if you don't like the immigration laws that are in place, fix it. Change it. Because you are the only ones that have the ability to do it, the House and the Senate, according to the Constitution. Fix it. But you're not. You're not. You would rather have all of us looking at each other like we're crazy when you're the crazy ones. It's really insane.
Conduct itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country.
Well,
we believe that ICE shouldn't run around with masks. We believe they should have body
That's
cameras.
fine, but let me ask you a question.
We believe
they have body cameras. Stop that. They have masks on because no, they are not in your neighborhood and they've been doxxed. Yeah.
that judicial warrants should be available before ICE is storming
Let me ask you a
homes
question, if I
or
may.
ripping people out of their cars. These
So-
are pretty basic
They
demands.
are, but these are policy issues. These are not funding appropriations issues. So because of that.
And by the way, everything that ICE is doing had already been passed by the House and Senate. So they're not doing anything illegal, dummy. They're doing the stuff that you put in place. You put the laws in place. And now you want to use funding as your platform? Just change the laws. If you don't like it, fix it. But don't tie the funding into it. It's sad. It's really sad.
That it feels a little bit like the last shutdown when it became about healthcare policy and kind of holding that hostage. Is that the way this is going again? Sort of treating this as if it's, policy, how the agency runs, which is really a different category than the appropriations bill. And I would mention again, this ICE funding, whether I know you don't like it, but it's a done deal till 2029.
Donald Trump and Republicans shut the government down for 43 days in the fall. Democrats were very clear. We'll find a bipartisan path forward. We just were not going to support continuing efforts to gut the health care of the American people. And right now, our position is pretty clear. It's shared by the American people that ICE should conduct itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country and not brutalize everyday Americans abusing taxpayer dollars. We'll consider any bill that comes out of the Senate on its merits. And we'll see what happens.
Okay, I mean, you said
occurs.
earlier that you would, you agree, you and Schumer are on the same page, Senator Schumer are on the same page. Here's Tom Homan, who is now overseeing the operations in Minneapolis. Let's watch. Minnesota.
I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed. And there has been. But if people out there don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the president. The same laws have been on the books for the last 6 presidents I worked for.
Your response to that, Leader Jeffries?
Yeah, it appears that members of the Trump administration don't think that the First Amendment applies, the freedom of assembly, the freedom to petition your government to change policies that you don't believe are in the best interest of the American people. They apparently don't believe that the Second Amendment applies, as has been demonstrated forcefully by the NRA. Clearly, they don't believe that the Fourth Amendment applies, the prohibition against unreasonable searches and seizures. The Trump administration has said that ICE doesn't apply, or the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to behavior that DHS conducts itself. All we're saying is
these
that
are all
the
things
Department
that
of Homeland Security should be reined in a manner consistent with American values.
So these are things that they would push back on point by point, and I'll allow them to do that. We're going to talk to Senator Graham in just a moment. But I have one more question for you. In New York, your home state, the other night, there was a protest in a hotel in Manhattan. And the New York Police Department went in and they said because I want to point out that the Trump administration, they're saying you cannot put yourself in between a law enforcement operation. You can certainly protest, but you can't put yourself in between a law enforcement operation. So there were 65 New Yorkers arrested by the New York City Police Department, and Mayor Mamdani did not protest this at all. Do you support that action by the New York City Police? And why didn't we see that in Minnesota? Wouldn't that have been a good idea?
Well, I'm unfamiliar with that particular incident. I'm happy to look into it and come back on your show and comment on it. But what I will say is that the American people, hundreds of millions of folks, saw a cold-blooded killing of Alex Pretty. He was called by the Trump administration a would-be assassin and a domestic terrorist. No, that was a malignant lie. We know he was an ICU nurse.
Well, the president has already sent in Tom Homan to remedy the things that you're talking about.
Veteran. I hope so, but it remains to be seen.
All right. Leader Jeffries, hey, I'm surprised that you haven't heard about that arrest of 65 people in New York. You represent the 8th District in New York. You hadn't heard that 65 protesters were arrested in New York City?
Are you surprised that I'm here in Washington working to avert a government shutdown and make sure that ICE actually conducts itself like every other law enforcement agency in the country?
Let me ask you, do you think this is going to be resolved in the next 24 hours or so, this shutdown issue?
That's certainly my hope.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
He's a lot. I'm sorry. And I know I got to kind of put you guys through it watching him. Oh, my goodness. And she's like, bro, this happened in your state. Like, okay. Okay. Your assistants need to do better, making sure that you're abreast of certain things like that happening in your state, where the police actually intervened and said, hey, ICE needs to do their job, and you cannot be here doing this. Okay. And you're going to jail doing this, because we're not going to have a Minnesota here in New York. That's what we're not going to do. And Mamdani said nothing. He said nothing. Okay. Mr. I don't want ICE in my city. ICE is in his city doing the job. Okay. So there's that. Now, she did bring up a valid point. She was like, why are you basically trying to mesh in policy with the funding? They've already been funded through 29. Let me say that again. They've already been funded to 2029. Trump won't even be in office and they'll still be funded. Sir, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Stop that. They're considered essential services. So I wanted to check that out because I did look it up and I was like, what is going on? Right? Of course, I wanted to ask about government shutdowns and all these other wonderful things that we're going through. And so as of January, the federal government is on the brink of a partial shutdown, unfortunately. And the remaining bills and agencies at risk, right? The DOD with military funds, Homeland Security, DHS, Labor and Health, Human Services, HHS, Transportation, HUD, Financial Services, and State Foreign Operations. If no action is taken, agencies under these bills must halt non-essential operations starting on January 31st, which is tomorrow, right? Now, essential services, national security, air traffic control, Social Security payments would continue, but impacts could include furloughs for hundreds of thousands of federal workers, delays in services like TSA screenings, Head Start programs, IRS processing, and it is tax season, right? Funding agencies would remain operational. Now, recent developments and negotiations, the House passed consolidated packages for the remaining bills earlier this month. HR 7006, State and Foreign Operation, and then 7148, which we've seen that, right? Defense, Labor, HHS, THUD, and DHS on January 22nd. Now, the Senate has been the bottleneck, and they have been. Okay. On January 29th, a procedural vote to advance the full package failed 44 to 55, with 7 Republicans joining Democrats in opposition. The main sticking point is DHS funding amid partisan disputes over immigration enforcement and ICE operations. Now you look at this and you're like, well, they have more. They have to have 60 because this again is the financial vote. Remember? Now this is where people got upset the last time and they were like, just nuke it and just do it and just override them and get rid of the whole filibuster situation, which is kind of like what this is. But could they nuke it, move it through? They could. They could. They could totally use the nuke option because they have the majority. The question is, are they going to do it? That's the question. So Democrats, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, are demanding reforms such as prohibitions on detaining U.S. citizens, body camera requirements, which they already have body cameras, and judicial warrants for raids. Okay, here's the thing. The judicial warrants, they already have in place that they don't need a warrant if somebody has deportation orders. You guys put these laws in place. This is a totally separate conversation. So you look crazy for what you're asking because you could have did this years ago. You didn't do it under Obama, who deported over 3 million people. It wasn't important then. Nobody was protesting ICE then. No one. Tom Homan got a medal from Obama for all the people that got deported. What are we talking about? What is wrong with you guys? What is wrong with you? But I'm glad you're showing who you are because now we know exactly what you support. You support illegal immigration. You need the bodies so that you can have the seats in the House. That's all this is about. This isn't about people you care about. This is about the United States. You definitely don't care about the American citizens of the United States. You definitely don't care about the people who actually went through the immigration process properly to gain their citizenship. No, this is about backdoor amnesty. 100%. And nobody's talking about it. This is backdoor amnesty. You want all these bodies here so you can build up your numbers in the House. It's disgusting. But we see you for who you are, and we're going to make sure that each and every one of you, Republican and Democrat, are primaried. Y'all really think you're just going to skate back in? And we'll just continue to do what we're doing. No, you're not. Not with 45% of people voting independent. We know your lies, and we know who you are. You better make sure you got a contingency plan because you're not going back in office. It's not going to happen. We're going to make sure you get voted out. Every single one of you. Okay. So the shutdown likelihood. The Senate is expected to vote and deal today, right? Potentially advancing it with bipartisan support. However, the House is currently in recess and not scheduled to return until February 2nd. So yay. We will be in shutdown mode because they're not going to come back and work. What? Yeah, there's that. So if negotiations break down, a longer shutdown could ensue, which we know. So I said, will DHS be funded regardless of a government shutdown? It says no. Now here's the kicker. The Department of Homeland Security will not necessarily be funded regardless of a government shutdown. So here's the breakdown. Now funding for most of the remaining federal agencies via 5 of the 6 outstanding appropriations bills is on track for full year funding through 2026 under a bipartisan deal reached in late January. Okay, so DHS funding has been separated from that larger package. Instead, the agreement provides a short-term continuing resolution, CR, for DHS, extending current funding levels for 2 weeks, approximately till February 13, 2026. This allows for further negotiations on contentious issues, particularly reforms, guardrails, on immigration and customs enforcement operations, tactics and oversights related to recent incidents involving ICE agents. And here's my thing. The ICE agents, they're under executive branch, and then you have the legislative branch. Okay, so you're trying to, in my opinion, ipso facto, tell her how to do her job. You don't like what she's doing. You don't like the outcomes, right? But we're dealing with people who have been radicalized to interfere with the operations of ICE. So something's got to give. Either you're going to uphold the law and tell people you cannot interfere in ICE operations, okay? Right? So they can do their job, and that's it. Because you're not going to have any incidents if people know they cannot interfere with ICE. But see, you're not doing that. You're not telling people you cannot interfere with these people doing their job. You've already set the laws in place. Like, what are we talking about? This is crazy land, in my opinion. Again, I want everybody. Oh, there are so many people I want in prison, but that's just me. That's a side note. I need to calm down. Woosah. Okay. So the Senate is expected to advance this package soon, potentially today. Okay. Now, shutdown implications for DHS. If the deal passes both chambers and is signed before the deadline, DHS would continue to be funded under the 2-week CR. Okay. However, a short partial shutdown is still likely over the weekend. Okay. The House is not in session, right? Went over that. So during any lapse, most DHS operations would continue because many are considered essential. Border security, okay. The Coast Guard, all right. TSA, air screening, ICE enforcement activities. So they're still not going to stop picking up people who have deportation orders, regardless of what you do. So this grandstanding is pathetic. It's just pathetic. You're not stopping anything. But because people don't do this kind of investigating, they're just in there, yeah, shut it down. They ain't going nowhere. They're still getting their money. They're still going to be doing their job. Period. End of story. Custom and Border Protection still doing their job at ports of entry, which are the legal ports of entry, by the way. FEMA disaster response, if active, and law enforcement, national security functions. So they're not doing anything. Now, non-essential DHS functions could face halts, right? Administrative offices, right? Certain grant processing and non-critical programs. So the people on the back end that are basically pencil pushers, we'll just say it for that, their jobs might get furloughed, not the ICE agents, because they're considered essential. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? All of this is a ruse for the American people. You want us to accept illegal activity, and we're not going to do it. We are not going to become evil for convenience. And that's where we're at right now spiritually. This is a battle. We are not going to become evil. We are not going to side with people doing things wrong. If you are here illegally, you are breaking the law, period. The end of discussion. Leave on your own recognizance. Because see, if you are deported, you don't get to come back. And if you try to come back, we'll deport you again or throw you in jail or whatever. You're making it worse on everyone. I've been calling and begging for a moratorium. We do have the Pause Act, but they're not passing that, as you see. Even though the Republicans have the majority, that should have sailed through the House and the Senate and been done, because it doesn't require funding. It just requires enforcement of the law. And nobody wants to pause this illegal immigration because they're making money off of it. Oh yeah, people are being abused behind this. There's all kind of nefarious things going on. And it's coming out of our Congress. That's, like I said, these people, they don't need to go back to office. They have, in my opinion, tainted our U.S. They've tainted the office. They've made it into this cesspool that it is. This is why people call it the swamp. Like I said, if I had my way, they'd be in prison. Prison. Majority of them in Congress should be in prison because they violated the law time and time again. And they know they should be in prison, but they keep trying to run after each other and cover each other's tails so they can stay in office. Primary, every last one of them. That's what we need to do. That's where we need to be at. And I wanted to say thank you, Sassy Lady, for joining us this morning and reposting the stream. And good morning, Jay. Peace and blessings to you. And Spud, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. I know my rant, I'm just like, have you ever just felt like I'm just over the nonsense? That's where I'm at. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, I've got 2 more clips that I want to share with you guys and get into some more news and definitely get into our prayer going into the weekend. So thank you guys for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, and we will see you on the other side.
A life empowered is closer than you think. We're all looking for a better way. Reimagine what's next with a new sense of exuberance. Why not power on like you mean it? Or power off blissfully? A better sleep is a better awake. You've never moved like this before. The energy nature intended. Imagine reprogramming the way you look at the speed of science. At longevity. At exhilaration. It's next level rejuvenation. Taking your well-being from the inside out and outside in. The light within is ready to ignite. Be the light. LifeWave.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And with that, let's get into our next clip. Now, this is regarding credit changes that may be happening.
Donald Trump and his administration is making 3 big changes when it comes to credit in February of 2026. Now, with these first 2 changes, it's going to be positive for each and every American. But the 3rd change, it's going to be negative. And 14 million people may be denied for loans and credit with that change. So we're going to jump into the first major change. Now, the first change is capping interest rates at 10% on credit cards for a year. Now, Donald Trump have made a request to credit card companies to cap Americans' credit card interest rate at 10% for a year. And he asked them to do that in January on the 20th of 2026. But this received some major pushback from credit card companies that said this will have a negative effect and cause multiple people for getting denied for credit because they will have to tighten their lending standards. So Trump believed that this can save at least Americans.
That's hilarious. So we're going to tighten the standards of extending credit to people because we can't charge them more interest than 10%. Does that sound crazy to you? Like, that's like a loan shark. I can't charge you 29%. So if I got to charge you 10%, I'm going to have to make it harder on people getting credit, you know. What? It's crazy.
$900 a month on interest and credit card payments, where they can actually put that towards the debt to pay it off and help cost of living in the United States. Now, The credit card companies say otherwise. Now, what is your opinion on the situation? Do you think capping that interest rate at 10% for a year is positive, or do you agree with the credit card companies that it will be negative? Drop your opinion in the comment section. Now, because they're not agreeing to take action, he have reached out to Elizabeth Warren, who now is going to work with a bipartisan effort to get this done. And this is her opinion on the situation.
President Trump reached out to Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren for a conversation that the White House called productive. Joining us right now with the details of how that conversation came about and maybe some areas where they can work together. It sounds like a Saturday Night Live skit that the two of you actually spoke and had something that the White House called productive.
I want to start with the big picture here. Is there anybody defending 36% interest rate on credit cards or 28% interest on credit cards? Anybody out there who isn't paid by the industry that's putting out those credit cards? And do keep in mind right now, there are a lot of community banks, there are a lot of credit unions that are putting out credit cards at much, much lower interest rates. But what do the credit card company giants say? They say, oh, no, you can't touch credit card interest rates. No matter what, it will be the end of the world. We will shut down credit cards. They go on and on and on. And basically, it's the same song they sang over what would happen if the CFPB put some caps on overdraft fees. What would happen if the CFPB put caps on fees on credit cards? The credit card companies literally make billions of dollars. Last year, they made $150 billion in profits off the credit cards that American families are holding. So we have some choices to make. Do the investors and the corporate executives keep that $150 billion, or does some chunk of that go back to hardworking families who are just trying to pay their mortgage, just trying to pay for groceries every month?
Now, with this bipartisan effort to change legislation in order to get this done, this can be extremely positive for every American credit score, because if their interest rates on their credit cards come down, this will affect their utilization on their credit reports. And many people were forced to use their credit cards due to the pandemic and the higher cost of goods and living. And so them being able to pay off this debt will positively affect their credit scores.
Yeah, I was a little bit behind when I said 29%, 36% up or more. That's crazy.
Now, the second big push by the Trump administration is to push the legislation of the Credit Access and Inclusion Act. This bill was introduced by Senator Tim Scott and is supported by Mike Rounds and Katie Von Britt and Kevin Kramer. Credit Access and Inclusion Act of 2025 is a bipartisan federal bill introduced in the 119th U.S. Congress that seeks to amend the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FCRA, to help more Americans build credit, especially those with limited or no traditional credit history. If enacted, this act could reshape the U.S. credit reporting by recognizing non-traditional payment history, offering millions of Americans a way to build credit or improve their credit scores without taking on new debt. The expanded credit history data. The bill will allow new types of positive payment information to be reported to the major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, including rent payments, utility payments, gas and electric and water, telecommunications, phone and internet. These are often not included in traditional credit reports, but can reflect responsible financial behavior. The support is for credit invisible customers. Millions of Americans are considered credit invisible. They lack enough data for a credit score. The act is designed to
Yeah. And see what it's kind of a downside. It's almost like if you don't have a credit card, we can't find you. But if you get a credit card and you ruin your credit, it's your fault. You know what I mean? And I have a child. She's like, I don't want a credit card. I just don't want one. She pays her bills. She's fine. But she does not want a credit card. So this would be a benefit to someone like her.
Help these consumers build credit without new debt, including long-standing positive payment history from non-loan sources. Consumer protections. To protect consumers, the bill will allow consumers to opt out of reporting this new data if they choose, ensure that on-time payments are reported while late payments are not reported if a consumer is on an approved repayment or assistance plan, clarifying federal law. The act will amend the FCRA by adding new language that explicitly permits full reporting, including the expanded data categories mentioned above. This provides legal clarity for landlords, utility companies, and telecom providers who may want to furnish this data to consumer agencies. An estimate 26 million Americans currently have no credit file, and another 19 million have unscorable credit histories. This leaves them shut out from essential opportunities like home ownership, auto loans, and higher education financing. Supporter says it will responsibly increase credit access and opportunities for consumers historically excluded from the mainstream credit system. Now, this would be positive for credit building because these are bills that you're already paying, and by the reporting of it, it can help even negative items that you already have on your credit, like late payments. By adding these on, you can add on more positive on-time payments that can help increase your credit score. Now, if you're looking to improve your credit, in the month of January, I started my credit kickoff, and this is designed to increase your credit score by 100 points for credit and loans. And here's the breakdown. U.S. withdrawal guidance barring lending discrimination against immigrants. The U.S. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Department of Justice have withdrawn guidance that explicitly barred lenders from discriminating against immigrants and non-citizens, a move that could affect how immigrants access loans. The decision announced on Monday removes a Biden-era policy that had aimed to clarify how existing fair lending laws apply to immigration and citizen status. The guidance was issued in 2023 under former President Joe Biden. It stated that lenders could consider immigration or citizen status while reviewing loan applications, but not as the sole factor and not in a way that cause bias or discrimination. While the federal law already prohibits discriminatory lending practices, the guidance was meant to clearly spell out how those protections apply to non-citizen borrowers. The policy change comes as the administration has stepped up efforts to encourage immigrants without legal status to leave the country. Last April, it began voiding Social Security numbers that had been issued under temporary protective status. As reported by Reuters, lawyers state that lenders could adopt blanket rules such as requiring an active Social Security number to apply for credit, which may align with current policy, but still risk violating the law if used as a pretext to deny loans.
Wow.
Now, this can negatively affect people depending on their actual status of citizenship. Now, even those with green cards can be affected, and that's about 14 million people in the United States, not including with those who are here on visas. Whether its legal status is proper or not, now banks can examine that. And when you look at some of the policies, there is a mass push of removing people from the country that may not be citizens at this time. So the banks could see non-citizenship as a risky gamble. Because if the banks give you a loan and you're slated to be deported out the country, you're leaving with money that's not being paid back, or credit cards that you can withdraw funds that's not going to be paid back, or even you might have a mortgage. So then that home goes into foreclosure. So this is allowing them to look at that status of citizenship to approve you or deny you for credit. Now, down the line, it may even lead to credit cards and even current loans to be recalled in by lenders if they see the policy of deportation going on. So this can affect a lot of people here who are non-citizens. So hopefully this information is helpful. If you have any questions or comments.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they're doing that, because it's like, why are you giving a loan to people who aren't even citizens here? They don't have a Social Security number, but they were given Social Security numbers, which is illegal, right? And those are the people that need to be deported. This is where ICE comes in if these people refuse to leave. And a lot of them have already gotten deportation orders. Let me get off my soapbox, but I'm just saying. Okay, and here is the last clip that I wanted to share with you guys today. I think this one's a little important because it's interesting.
Donations meant for victims of Maine's deadliest shooting wound up somehow in the bank accounts of 29 nonprofits with no connection to the shooting.
$1.9 million was diverted away from the victims into 29 different nonprofits. At least 9 of them focused on helping immigrants who were nowhere near the massacre.
They raised money for nonprofits on the backs of 18 people who were murdered.
So the Federal Office of Inspector General found that in just 2023, $46 million was improperly charged to the autism program, Main Care Section 28.
And we're back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all, today I had a quick call. What was that quick? It was about 30 minutes. I had a call with one of our listeners who took advantage of our paralegal certificate sale, y'all. He enrolled his daughter, and we had a call today, and we were talking about everything that's happening out there. And I think we both agreed on one central underlying principle. As long as the government's going to ask us for more of our money, they are going to need to show us that they are spending the money properly and that they are accounting for and tracking money well. And with all of the fraud talk out there, y'all, with all of the fraud that's being discovered, seems like there's millions and millions of more fraud discovered and uncovered every day. And that's not even including just wasteful spending. That's actual fraud. That's actually stealing of the money. So you have the waste, fraud, and abuse. That's just the fraud part, okay? With all of that, y'all, it's hard for Americans to say, yeah, take more of my money, you know? And with that in mind, y'all, today we're gonna be talking about your girl, Janet Mills, and the great state of Maine, where tragedy struck, y'all. They had a mass shooting several years ago. You may have heard about it. It was the Lewiston mass shooting. We've talked about that here on the channel. The reason we've covered is because Americans generously poured out money into Maine afterwards to help the survivors, to help the people who were wounded, to help the people who lost a loved one. $6 million went into Maine, at least $6 million, y'all, and about a third of that money. Okay, now all of this money was supposed to go to the survivors. Okay, obviously, like who else should get it? Survivors, families, survivors, caretakers, etc. That all would make sense, right? So why are nonprofits that have nothing to do with the mass shooting getting the money? So why are nonprofits that service immigrants, that not immigrants who were involved in the shooting, just, you know, whoever, just random, why are they getting the money, y'all? So today we're going to take a look at a recent investigative journalism piece that blew the lid off of this. Everybody's talking about it on social media now. And now one nonprofit is actually offering to give the money back. So we're going to take a look at that today. And also, how about $45 million more? How about $45 million extra dollars of Maine money that apparently went to fraud, y'all? We're going to cover all that today, y'all. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. But before we do, y'all, who you would say did something wrong, if any wrongdoing was involved, right? It would have been this organization, and we're about to identify them here shortly. It would have been they who had control over the money, who then doled it out in a way that many of us would say was done incorrectly.
Rich McHugh has more on why one of the nonprofits has agreed to return all the money.
Why would you give money to nonprofits that aren't even helping any of the survivors? It just doesn't make sense.
In the wake of Maine's worst shooting, with 18 lives lost, Americans stepped in and donated $6.6 million. $1.9 million was diverted away from the victims into 29 different nonprofits. At least 9 of them focused on helping immigrants who were nowhere near the massacre.
They raised money for nonprofits on the backs of 18 people who were murdered, 13 people who were shot, and 136 people who escaped their attempted murder. They used that to raise money for nonprofits.
All of it orchestrated by a local nonprofit, the Maine Community Foundation. But now Sussman says that after hearing these reports and from other victims, one of the nonprofits says it wants to make things right and give the money it received, $65,000, to the survivors and family members.
So the Maine Community Foundation apparently was the entity which had control of the money. That's what it seems like this news piece is saying. So that would be the entity where you would want to have questions for, like, hey, and they do have an explanation here, y'all. Hey, we had 2 different pots of money, and some of the money went into this pot and some of the money went into that pot. Some of the Lewiston shooting recovery relief funds that people donated to help people, victims, families of victims of a mass shooting, some of that money that they donated went into the pot for immigrants some kind of way.
The Maine Community Foundation declined our request for an interview, but says they were clear from the outset that there were two different funds, and their, quote, communication to the recipients of the Victims and Families Fund regarding contributions referred to that fund only. Anita Bush, founder of Victims First, an organization dedicated to providing assistance to survivors and families of mass casualty crimes, says this: when nonprofits accept donations collected after a mass shooting, those nonprofits should be assisting victims and survivors of that shooting. The leader of one nonprofit had a change of conscience. We pray others do as well. The Maine Community Foundation has a chance to do the right thing here to ask if other nonprofits will do the same.
I'm going to pause it right there, and I'm going to leave the clip. But the same thing happened in California with the burn victims. You know, all the celebrities got together and they raised all this money. The survivors saw none of that money. The people who had their homes burned down, the people that survived those fires, they saw none of that money. It went all to NGOs and 501c3s. Yeah. And they gave none of the money to the victims. Because the victims were like, well, how do we get access to it? How are we supposed to get access to this money that supposedly, was there to help us? So whenever you see like these Live Aid or Band Aid type concerts, and they're like, yeah, we're raising money, don't send them a dime. Don't send them 2 red cents. Because the money's not going to go to the victims at all. It's going to go right into their pockets. And they might donate maybe a little bit of it, but they might donate it to the city. And they'll be like, well, the city, I donated it to the city to give to the people to help them. If they didn't do it, that's not my fault. Yeah. So there's that. Just lots to pray for. Just saying. It's very sad that people have been taken advantage of in such a way, and that other people actually use their loss, right? Or what happened to them to make money off of it. It's very disgusting. So you got to start looking at some of these people in a different light. Like, I can't give you my money. But I wanted to check out this last article before we get into our prayer for the weekend. Now, this is about Trump and his 2 sons. They are suing the IRS over a tax return link. So President Donald Trump and his sons, Eric and Donald Trump, and the Trump Organization have filed a lawsuit against the Internal Revenue Service over leaks of their business and personal tax returns. Now, this is interesting because obviously he's the president of the United States. Obviously, the IRS falls under his purview. It's one of the agencies under the executive branch, and they just somehow leaked it. This lets you know that there is partisan working going on at the executive branch. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to be like, hey, I'm going to do everything President Donald Trump says. That's not why you work there or not work there, right? But you shouldn't be doing things that just go against the country. You know what I'm saying? Because now a lot of people are like, well, he's the president. His stuff, you can put his stuff out there. You can, but you can't put the business stuff out there, even though he's tied to the business. Personal is different than business. And if they're messing with the business stuff, that's probably where this is falling. So the lawsuit seeks a $10 billion with a B. So you're suing yourself. Let's just start there. You're suing yourself. Suing your own agency in damages for what Trump describes as reputational and financial harm. Okay, I just want to make sure I pronounce that right. Following a tax record leak by Charles Littlejohn. Oh, okay. A former IRS contractor in 2019. So this is actually something that went back. So it's not current. This is in the past. Right? In 2019, they argued the IRS and Treasury Department were negligent and acted in an overtly political nature by failing to implement mandatory safeguards that would have blocked Littlejohn from accessing the data. They also allege these disclosures unfairly tarnished their business reputations and were intended to improperly influence the 2020 a presidential election. So for context, the lawsuit comes after its contracts with Booz Allen Hamilton, the government contractor that had 23, Little John pleaded guilty to stealing and leaking tax records of Donald Trump and roughly 7,600 other wealthy individuals to news outlets, including New York Times and ProPublica, and they both left. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. According to the leaks, Trump had only paid $750 in federal income tax in both 2016 and 2017 during his first administration. Trump refused to release his tax returns despite saying he would do so during the campaign. That's how the media is covering it. We got Fox News and Just News highlighted the illegality of Little John's actions and focused on the lawsuit claims that the leak caused harm by violating federal privacy laws. Fox News quoted a spokesperson from Trump legal team calling Little John a rogue, politically motivated IRS employee. Just the News noted the lawsuit marks the first time a sitting president has ever sued his own administration for a monetary reward. That's why I'm like, you're suing yourself. It's kind of crazy. So CNBC on the left also noted administration is unheard of and said it raises various conflict of interest questions. CNN, that leans left, noted Trump broke a decades-long tradition. Now, again, is a tradition mandatory? Is a tradition mandatory? Is it the law that they have to? They don't have to. It's a tradition. That's different than you have to. Okay? For presidential candidates to release their tax returns. MarketWatch noted the potential impact on taxpayers and mentioned Trump also sued JP Morgan Chase and its CEO last week, accusing them of closing his accounts for political reasons after January 6th of 2021. He's coming after all of y'all. Like, buckle up, Buttercup. Like, this is for real. He is not playing. Okay, so I just wanted to know because I was like, okay, so in general, no, because I asked a question. I was like, do you have to give permission to the IRS as a politician to release your personal business returns? So it says, no, in general, you don't have to give permission for the IRS to release your personal or business tax returns. The IRS is strictly prohibited from disclosing them without your consent under IRC section 6103, except in specific authorized circumstances. So they can't just put it out there. And it wasn't just Donald Trump, it was 7,600 other people. So are those people going to come back and sue the IRS as well? Was their information put out on Front Street like Donald Trump's? I mean, I'm just saying, like, at this point, are you going to bankrupt the IRS? I'm trying to do this without laughing because it's just hilarious to me. But I'll make sure to link this in the repost. One of the last things I wanted to do was this, but I'm going to remove it from the scene and then connect it again because I want to make sure you guys can actually hear. So let me share this. There we go. All right.
Here's a list of the many tax increases and proposals Democrats in Virginia are considering passing. They include additional local sales tax in all Virginia counties and cities, new personal property tax on electric leaf blowers and electric landscaping equipment, large employer tax, gun and ammunition tax, new income tax brackets, a delivery tax. This would hit you if you make an order on Amazon, Uber Eats, or an order that includes UPS, FedEx delivery, etc. here in Northern Virginia. There's also a tax they're looking at for events, concerts, an investment income tax, storage facility tax, gym membership tax, dog walking tax, dog grooming tax, counseling tax, digital personal property tax, new car taxes and highway use fees, an increase in the hotel tax here in Arlington, statewide speed cameras. Now, these aren't taxes, but they would include more fines for some drivers, dry cleaning tax, home repair tax, and a vehicle repair.
Democrats have not even been in power in Virginia for 30 days, and they have proposed over 50 new taxes or tax increases. Think about that. They have not been in power for 30 days, yet they've proposed more than 50 increased taxes or new taxes. And this is the same party that's been trying to attack Donald Trump on affordability, and Trump isn't making things affordable. These people will tax us into oblivion if we let them. This is very likely a preview of what we could get at the federal level if Democrats have power across the board. They haven't even been in power for 30 days, and they've proposed more than 50 new ways to take more money out of their constituents' pockets. It is crazy. Again, I want people to be aware of this because this is what we're dealing with the modern Democratic Party. They're over there talking about, we're going to make things affordable. We're going to make stuff affordable. Then the moment they get in office, we need more of your money. Give us more of your money. There's a reason the most expensive states in the country are Democrat-ran states, and that's because Democrats are not very good at making things affordable. They're good at the opposite. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Don't forget, free email newsletter.
I just had to play that for you guys because I was like, what? But again, Democrats, they're out there yelling, they're making your lives hard. We'll make it easier. Y'all are proven and just blatant about it. You really just don't care. You don't care. And it's sad. Okay. Wow. I wanted to get in a couple of comments. See, Spud says, when I was a kid, there were telethons on TV. Yep, every weekend. Don't we remember Jerry Lewis? I think we remember Jerry Lewis. And then Bloodpock says, these 1965 to 2000 immigrants think this is how our country is ran. Yeah. And it's really sad, right? They really think that they are entitled to everything that individuals have been giving them by circumventing our laws and putting in place policies. Yeah. So with that, let's definitely pray. So God, thank you so much for getting us through this week. We're praying for covering Thanksgiving going into the weekend. We're so grateful that even though areas have snow, Father, we're just praying for people's safety, that there's not going to be a lot of accidents, and definitely protect those that are working to help others as they're out in the cold as well, God. And we're just definitely just so grateful for all of the small victories that you have given us in our country. Definitely praying that the government will not be shut down very long, even though the House is on recess. Really just praying that the Senate, that they are able to push through this Appropriations Act. They haven't passed a clean resolution in a long, long time, God. So we're just praying for a difference to be made with our legislatures, God. And we just, again, we thank you for everything you're doing, everything you've done, and everything you will do, Father. We love you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray and give thanks. Amen. So you guys, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. We will be back on Tuesday, not Monday, on Tuesday. I've got a few things that I need to take care of on Monday, so I will not be broadcasting on Monday. We will be back on February 10th at 7 a.m. So again, thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.